Hello everyone, my name is Pixlriffs and welcome to the first episode of the survival guide in Minecraft 1.19. We're going to be continuing the same Minecraft survival guide world, but before we get started, I just thought we would give some appreciation to this beautiful new login screen. We're going to update our world right now. I have not opened the survival guide season 2 world in 1.19 yet, so it's time to do just that. No need to make any backups. We did make a recent backup, so all we need to do is load up the world, and new recipes have already unlocked. And things are going to look pretty much the same over here at our spawn area. I just need to make sure that my settings are all good. 16 chunks, yep, everything seems fine. It was raining when I logged out. I just went to repair my tools at the Enderman farm, repaired a little bit of other stuff, and got all of it packaged up into our ender chest. Because today, I've decided we're going to go looking for one of the new biomes in Minecraft 1.19. We're going to save the Deep Dark for tomorrow's episode. I think we're going to go looking for a mangrove swamp today, and I want to bring back all the goodies that a mangrove swamp can provide. So we're going to take a couple of empty shulker boxes with us. We're going to grab a spare ender chest just in case we need one. I'm going to grab a bed so that I can sleep for the night, and I'll probably do a little bit of exploring just so that we can get straight to the mangrove swamp and check out the new stuff in the update, because I don't know where a mangrove swamp is going to be in this world, and I don't want to just blabber on for ages while I'm searching around my world. I think the first place I'm going to look is out by the swamp that's near our ocean monuments, just in case a mangrove swamp has generated adjacent to that, since that is one of the areas that we deleted some chunks when we trimmed the world in yesterday's video. But I'm really excited to get into some of the stuff that we've got coming up in Minecraft 1.19, and a mangrove swamp is going to be a great place to start. So let's warp out here to the ocean monument, and I think a skeleton just walked through my portal. Yep, there he is. Get into the ocean, you. And I think I'm going to wait for the night to arrive, so I'm going to pop my bed down here just so we can have a nice clear day to go and explore for mangrove forests if we can find one. Okay, we've finally been able to clear up that rain. Now let's head out this way and see if a mangrove swamp has generated on the borders of this swamp biome over here. And it does look like the chunks are loading in fresh once again. But so far this swamp is looking much the same as it did before. Yeah, it looks like our OG swamp is still our OG swamp, which means we're going to have to look a little further afield, because I know there are a couple of swamps that are further out to the south here. We're currently in the north part of the world right now, up near the Guardian farm. I honestly get my directions confused in this world all of the time. But let's do a bit of flying around here. We might find one adjacent to a jungle, because I believe mangrove swamps are that kind of tropical, humid, warm biome like the jungle is. So maybe we'll look around some of the jungles and see if we get lucky and find ourselves a mangrove swamp. We're also going to find them adjacent to coastlands and probably warm oceans. So this seems like a good place to start. There's little patches of jungle around here. Oh my gosh, there it is! We've got one! Oh man, and I'm not normally an impatient person, but can I just say, finally. It took me so long to find this. We're actually about, what, 5,000 blocks out? This is in completely new terrain. This is not in terrain that I ended up deleting from my world, and I've probably undone all of the work of trimming down the world to a reasonable file size just by flying around. But these mangrove swamps seem to be few and far between in this world seed. Of course, they are going to be, you know, a little bit different depending on everybody else's world seeds. But look, it stretches over there as well. Some of it's generated up onto this hilltop. As you can see, we're surrounded by savanna and jungle, so this is definitely one of the warmer biomes. Looks like we might even have a desert biome on the other side. Glorious. So happy we found another desert, because I was getting worried that I might just mine out the entirety of that one. But if we stand in this desert here, it kind of wraps around us, actually, and we can be surrounded by this mangrove biome. It's generated in kind of an odd shape, but that's fine. It seems like a kind of strip of the warm biomes over here, and this one, oh yeah, no, this area over here looks like if we pop ourselves down in the middle of this, it's going to be more of an immersive experience. But first of all, you'll notice that these biomes are kind of similar to jungle in terms of the density of the foliage. At least from here, there are tall trees, there are short trees, and they're all very closely clustered together. Like the swamps and the jungles, you'll also find vines growing on the trees, but these are the new mangrove trees. And to really get the effect of these, we have to get down into the floor of the mangrove swamp and look up. We've got all of this mud around here. Let me try and find some water as well, because I feel like these biomes are best if there's a little bit of water around, kind of like the swamp atmosphere kicks in around there. Yes, here we go. All right, so we've got some lily pads out here that we can stand on. The water is this really nice kind of swampy blue color. It's not quite as murky as the typical swamp water, I find. It looks a little bit more tropical. And all around us, we have these mangrove roots growing up, supporting the mangrove trees, some of which can get really tall. I get the sense that those aren't quite as tall as the tall jungle trees, but they are getting up there. The ground of these biomes are made of new mud blocks, and I'm sure we'll get a chance to explore what mud blocks do in just a second, but I think it's time to get some sleep so that we can explore this without skeletons messing with us too much. There we go, much better. So let's take a quick raft down the river if it carries on in this direction, interrupted occasionally by lily pads. And this is all just a waterway that's generated as part of the Mangrove Swamp biome. So this doesn't look like a river biome to me. No, this is still Mangrove Swamp. So we're not going to see, you know, drowned generating here and stuff like that. In fact, the bed of the Mangrove Swamp waterway is also made up of a mix of mud and clay. So that's a really neat looking visual. It's actually a lot darker than the riverbeds we are used to seeing. I don't really know where to start with all of this, to be honest. There's so much cool stuff that's going to go on here, and we might have seen a couple of bits and pieces of it already. Honestly, the first thing I want to do is take a look at these trees, because the actual wood of the trees can generate relatively low to the ground, so it can be pretty accessible, or, in the case of trees like this one, the roots really suspend it above the ground. And the roots are kind of like their own type of leaf block in a way. They are obtainable. We can get hold of these using an axe, and I'm pretty sure we can just punch them to obtain them. Yeah, they don't break like leaves do. They will just drop as their own item. Fantastic. Let's see if we can climb these roots to get on up here. It seems like the axe is the effective tool for them, though, and that gets us up close and personal with mangrove wood. So I'm going to take a couple of logs out of this, but I don't want to get the leaves down just yet. And we'll get to these in just a second. But if we take a look at mangrove logs, that is the interior wood color. So if we break a mangrove log down, I think I dropped one of them somewhere. If we break a mangrove log down into planks, they are this beautiful red color, kind of an orangey red actually. And this could go super well between acacia and jungle wood and crimson wood from the nether. I think those are a really fantastic looking block and such an interesting color. We can strip the logs as well, so you get a lovely smooth barky texture in that color as well. I love that. I think that's super cool. And naturally we can turn that into a crafting table. You can craft sticks out of them. You can do basically whatever you would do with any other wood type. There are trapdoors, there are doors, there are slabs and stairs, all of the variants you would expect from this, fences as well, of course. And so we're going to need to bring back a bunch of mangrove saplings. Or maybe it's not quite right to call them saplings, because these right here, which honestly look kind of like a lightsaber being held upside down, these are Mangrove Propagules, and this is how you grow mangrove. It's more or less the same as a sapling, but instead of dropping from the leaves as a block, like loot drop, instead of dropping as an item when you break the leaves, they actually generate dangling underneath the leaves like this. And in fully formed mangrove trees, you will find them growing to maturity underneath all of the leaves that you find. But in some cases, especially if a tree is new, but sometimes if a tree is naturally generated and just hasn't had a chance to grow yet, you will see these ones that haven't fully developed. And much like the other natural resources in the world, a lot like other plants, you can grow these in stages using bone meal, which I really should have grabbed from that skeleton now that I think about it. Let's see if it dropped any bones. Man, it's so cool wandering amongst all of the roots in these mangrove biomes, though. I could get lost in here pretty easily, I think. But back here is where we killed the skeleton. Oh, it only dropped some arrows. Okay, well, maybe we'll have to find some bone meal from somewhere. Maybe that's something I'll have to wait to demonstrate once we get back to the house with some of this stuff. But we basically want to bring as many of these mangrove propagules with us as we can, and then we're going to start growing those back at the house so we can farm these trees in other biomes, of course. There's even bits of moss carpet on some of the roots around here, really giving it that overgrown feel, especially along with the vines and whatnot. But the interesting thing about the mangrove propagules is that you don't get them as a drop from leaves, meaning that if you break these leaves, the only drop you're likely to get is sticks, which is very unusual for Minecraft's trees. This is probably the first one, aside from the nether trees, I suppose, that doesn't drop saplings from breaking the leaves, which means that these leaves are basically worth silk touching unless you just want to farm some sticks, I guess. So I'm actually going to take my silk touch hoe out of here. This is one of the things that I repaired while I was at the Enderman farm, and I think we're going to silk touch a bunch of these leaves, clear out an entire tree, and take it with us. That will also drop the propagules off, so the propagules attached to the leaves won't have to be broken, like, directly. You can break them indirectly by breaking the leaves that they're attached to. So, for example, right here, if I break that off, the propagule is just going to drop. As long as it's fully formed, you can take it with you. Meaning that these are trees where fortune doesn't really apply to them at all. Or it does, I guess, if you're looking for stick drops, but I don't know that many people who farm trees exclusively for sticks. These trees are such a complex shape as well. They're like tall, winding trees, and it's going to be kind of tricky to get all of the logs out of them, but I assume once we've taken out all of the logs, the leaves are just going to start to decay the way any other leaves would. Yeah, fantastic. Okay, so those will drop the propagules as well, meaning that we can come down to ground level and collect some of those. And just like that, we have ourselves 8 mangrove propagules, which should be enough, I'm pretty sure, to get us started farming these back at our house. I'm going to take the root blocks with me as well, but I think the roots should generate with a newly grown tree, meaning that we can farm those pretty renewably as well. So I'm going to stuff all of those in the ender chest. We're going to take a proper look at them once we're back at the house, I think. Now let's turn our attention to some of the other blocks around us. Let's grab some mud. I'm pretty sure, yeah, shovel, definitely the efficient tool for mud, and you'll notice a few different recipes unlocked when we gathered the mud blocks. So we can turn this into packed mud, which is crafted with wheat and these regular mud blocks, and it turns it into like a dried out version of the mud that feels like more of a building material, and from there it can be crafted into bricks and all sorts of stuff. But personally, I really like this regular mud. I've been looking at it in the context of cliff faces like this. If we get up into the canopy once again and we take a look at the sides of... Let's take a look at the side of this hill over here, where the jungle and the mangrove swamp interact. Right over here, doesn't this just look like a darker type of stone? Like, in the context of it being on the ground, you kind of read that as mud, but with it being part of a cliffside like this, I honestly think that's the type of stone texture I've been looking for in the game for a while. Something that's a little bit darker, maybe the kind of darkness that Deep Slate has, but without all of the noise in the texture. There's a little bit of texture there, but it's much more subtle, less contrast in it than Deep Slate, and I think that's going to be really cool for building like mountainsides with, if you want a more maybe volcanic looking formation or something like that. I don't know. We could come up with some really cool stuff to build with just this regular mud block. Mud is actually going to be one of the highlights of this update for me because it's capable of so much for just a single, fairly pretty looking block. But we don't even need to take this mud block with us to get it renewably elsewhere. Really, here is just a great place to farm it en masse where it is abundant, and as you can see, it generates multiple layers down, so it's not just one layer of mud with stone or grass or dirt or something underneath. It is a several layers situation. In fact, I want to see how far down this goes. Yep, there we go. Okay, so it goes down about as far as the dirt goes in other biomes. That's very, very good. If you want to strip a mangrove biome for its resources, then you can do that pretty easily, and even clearing out a large area, you're probably still going to be left with a decent amount of it around you. So a couple of stacks of that are going to go in the shulker box as well, and we've picked up another block in the process, muddy mangrove roots. You'll see a couple of these in the ground around here already. They tend to generate at the base of these trees, where the trees have interacted with the mud, and in fact, they actually grow downwards into the mud from the roots of the trees, which is really cool. So you can actually target the roots of these trees if you want to gather just that block yourself. It's kind of like the rooted dirt that you get growing at the base of azalea trees. There'll be a few of them sat around here from the tree that we cleared out just a minute ago, so I'll probably grab a few more of those as well. But of course, these can also be crafted by using the roots that you gather from the trees themselves and a single block of mud. We can combine the two of those in a 2x2 crafting interface, and we get muddy mangrove roots if we want to texture things with those. Oh yes, no, very, very excited about all of this, and I think we're probably going to make a project out of one of these biomes one of these days. I'm not sure quite what we should do here, but I do want to earmark a larger biome like this, because maybe there are a couple of smaller mangrove swamps around the world, but if I can find something this large, then potentially we can do something really cool with it. And I think right here seems like a pretty good place to set up a nether portal, because this is already 5,000 blocks out. We're going to need to have a nether portal set up here. I'm going to break down a couple of my ender chests once again so that we can grab a bit more obsidian. This time I do have a flint and steel in my... No, I don't. Oh, it's right there. Okay, I thought once again that I had forgotten to bring a flint and steel with me, but luckily I do have one in my ender chest. Fantastic. So we can use that to light a portal over here. We'll probably link it up to the Nether hub on a live stream or something like that, something where we can really focus on getting the infrastructure set up out here. There we go, quick and dirty Nether portal. Let's quickly take the coordinates of that, and we'll see what the Nether is looking like on the other side. Well, pretty much just as muddy, actually. A soul sand valley right next to a Nether fortress. Interesting. Just quickly casting my eye around to see if there's any lava falling. Nope. Looks like we are in the clear. All right, well, from here, I think I should be able to make my way home if I can just get my bearings. East and a little bit south, I think, for us. And welcome back to the spawn base. So now we can start farming mangrove trees. We've got a few more propagules. A couple of them just dropped on me as we were leaving, and that's absolutely perfect. We've got all the bone meal we could ever want over here thanks to the mob farm, so I think let's try growing a couple of these trees ourselves, and let's see what it's going to be like getting these renewably. So the first question is going to be, can we plant the mangrove propagules on grass? Yes, we can. Okay, the next question will be, can they grow on grass, especially considering that nether fungi, like the warped and crimson huge fungi, need to be planted on the correct surface, on the correct type of nylium, in order to grow them. Is that the case with these mangrove saplings? Nope, doesn't look like it is. Okay, well, what a fantastic start. What a lovely looking mangrove tree. And once again, a couple of fully formed propagules, like that one there. That's immediately renewed that, but there's a couple of these that look like they are still shorter stage. Yes, there you go. We've managed to grow that one a stage, and there are a couple of these, what I think of as lightsaber handles. At this point, these kind of early pods of mangrove propagule that just need to grow that little bit more. So let's give them a helping hand with a little bit more bone meal. There we go. These things seem to have 3 or 4 stages to them before they are fully grown and ready to drop. Now that should happen naturally. They don't drop naturally from the leaves, but they should grow slowly over time if you leave them be. But it seems like on average the trees tend to generate with 1 or 2 of them fully grown already. This one doesn't though, so that's going to be an interesting task for people who want to farm these renewably. If they want to farm them automatically, especially, you're going to need to grow a couple of these propagules or have a stockpile of them before you start just spamming your way through these trees in massive numbers. Wait a second, I think I actually, yeah, if you bone meal the underside of the leaf blocks, it grows a propagule from scratch. So you don't need to find the ones that have generated. You can just sit underneath a mangrove leaf and farm the propagules on their own. That's really interesting. Okay, so I assume we can just do that with the leaves. It's not going to be under the roots or anything. Okay, cool. So what if I set up a mangrove leaf over here, and I can just bone meal that? It doesn't need to be attached to the wood or anything. Perfect. And you can bone meal the mangrove leaf from basically any surface, and it will grow the propagule underneath, which means if we get some dispensers up in here, looks like the observer isn't going to detect the stages of a propagule growing. Alright, well, looks like we can't use that idea, but maybe on a clock or something. Next question, can we grow the propagule automatically with bone meal from a dispenser into the side of these leaves? Looks like we can. Okay, and that's not a full propagule. Okay, so we need to have 4 dispensers around the outside, but 1 pull of that lever, and we should get, yes, a fully grown propagule that drops into the hopper if we break it manually. So with an observer clock powering 1 dispenser firing bone meal into the leaves, and 4 dispensers all the way around the outside dispensing bone meal at the propagule, we should hopefully be able to do something like this. There we go, that's kind of a propagule farm. My angle of approach was the problem there. I think I just broke the leaves. Let's try that again. Yeah, pretty good. Pretty good. Nice and straightforward, that design. Probably needs a little bit of refinement, maybe a bit of compacting, but I think overall we can farm these propagules pretty well separately, and that will leave us to just get the wood from the mangrove trees. If we wanted to, we might even be able to break the propagules with a piston coming up from this, as long as there was something to collect them nearby, maybe a hopper minecart kind of half pushed into the same space or something. It might be a little bit janky, but we could get it to work with full automation. That'd be kind of cool. But as far as a quick and dirty propagule farm goes, I think it does the job. So now we've got over a stack of these things, the next question is, how close together can we plant them? Because I have a feeling these root blocks are the things that get in the way here. I have this problem with jungle trees, where most often they don't tend to worry about growing up through the leaves or the wood of neighboring trees, but it's the vines that really get in the way. So if I grow another mangrove tree here, is this one next to it going to want to grow? Oh, it does, but it takes a little bit of extra bone meal. Okay, so that's going to take some doing, and you know what? I think the root block there may have actually overgrown the propagule immediately to one side of it. Yeah, we lost a couple there. We did lose a couple. So these might be something that you want to plant one at a time, just to make sure that they don't end up completely devouring all of the stuff around them. But it seems like growing up through the root blocks isn't so much of a problem for them. The problem now is the height. Yeah, getting up here and taking all of these down is going to be a bit of an adventure, and I don't know how much wood we're going to get from an individual tree, considering that they're sort of like the big oak trees. They have lots of winding branches going up through them, but there isn't a 2x2 variant like spruce or jungle trees, so we're not going to find these growing in such large quantities. Since they grow tall and the leaves decay, though, it's not as bad as it's going to be farming something like netherwood, right? We're still going to be able to take out all of these logs, and if we want to, we can just fortune the leaves to get them to go away. Right now, I'm going to silk touch them just because I really like the vertical leaf texture. I think that's a really cool thing. We're going to swap out the leaves of the willow tree over there by our river. We're going to put these mangrove leaves in, and it's going to look a lot more dangly, which I think is a good look for willow trees in general. Respectable amount of wood here. We're close to a stack now, so it's not too shabby. The challenge here is really the irregularity, the fact that every mangrove tree is going to grow a little bit different. And yeah, that's going to take some technical wizardry to farm automatically. That's going to be a real challenge for the folks who like to farm these things using redstone contraptions. For me, though, with my little Chopping Tuesday routine, farming trees manually is kind of my thing. I think this is sort of perfect. So let's let some of these leaves decay, and let's see what happens to the roots after that. But while that's happening, let's turn our attention back to these mud blocks, because I mentioned there was a way of getting those renewably without having to worry about grabbing anything else from the biomes. So let's see if we can get this working. All we should need is some dirt and some glass. We're going to turn all of the glass into glass bottles, and we're going to fill it up with water over here. And I can't really fit a great deal of glass bottles in my inventory because they're not going to stack. But if we lay out a little bit of dirt around here and grab a glass bottle, there we go. Right-clicking on it with a glass bottle full of water turns dirt into mud. And mud has some pretty cool properties. Much like honey or soul sand, you actually sink into it ever so slightly whilst you are walking on it. Although, unlike honey and soul sand, it doesn't slow you down when that happens. And naturally, my next question is, do items go through mud into a hopper? And the answer is yes, they do. So that is not a solid block. It is a partial block, kind of similar to Dirt Path, but with the appearance of a solid block. And I believe you'll take the same amount of fall damage falling onto it as well. So that's going to be a really neat block to use in fall damage based mob farms, when you just want to kill the mob automatically without having to worry too much about anything else getting in the way. And as I mentioned, we can make as much of it as we want to using water bottles. The the splash sound effect is a little bit much. There's like a second splash that plays after it. I don't know, it feels a little excessive to me. But either way, we should be able to just make all of the mud blocks we want to this way. Although, I don't know, making them one by one like this feels a little bit slow. Which is once again where I'm wondering if we can speed up the process. Now, let's just spend a bit of time filling up this double chest and dispenser with water bottles. We'll put a redstone torch in the ground in front of the dispenser. And now if I place a dirt block here, there we go, it automatically turns it into mud. So you can automate this process by having a dispenser dispense a water bottle onto the dirt block. The unfortunate problem now is that it's going to keep the glass bottles here in the dispenser, but those should just stack up in one corner, I believe. So if we put another dirt block here, oh, okay, right, so they don't stack up that way. So we are going to have to remove the glass bottles from the dispenser in order to make sure that the water bottles are used on any dirt that passes by here. Meaning we'd need an item filter underneath this just filtering out the empty water bottles, and we'd probably need to have some other kind of mechanism powering the dispenser, considering that a redstone torch here would lock the hopper there, but I don't know, we could figure that stuff out. And then with a smart piston set up right here, can we put redstone dust on mud? Okay, you can. Interesting. So non-solid block, but you can put redstone dust on it. Very, very nice. Anyway, we can just feed tape those in front of the dispenser like so, and as long as they don't turn to grass like that one did, or the dispenser doesn't try and dispense a glass bottle like it did just then. Yeah, a couple of refinements need to be made to that system, but I think we can probably set up a feed tape which is going to produce mud blocks for us, and that solves the problem of mud blocks being a little bit tedious to get hold of renewably if you're using the glass bottles on them manually all the time. It's taken me a while to get there, but this kind of redstone redstone problem solving I really like now. It's super cool to be able to set up these little systems that will just help you make the most out of new resources when they arrive in the game. Speaking of which, it looks like all of the leaves have decayed over here, and as expected, they have left the roots behind, meaning that now we can go through with an axe and just take down all of the roots at once. And you'll note that they haven't created rooted dirt underneath them or anything like that. This isn't the kind of case where they're going to do that. I do wonder if they're going to create those muddy root blocks if we grow the trees on mud blocks to begin with. So let's grab a little bit more mud and use that as an example. And for the roots to guaranteed grow into the mud, we're probably going to have to make a wide area of it. Let's say like a 7x7 square. We'll set a mangrove propagule dead center of that one. We'll bone meal it a few times and let's see if it does. Incredible. Okay, so this does create muddy mangrove roots when you grow a mangrove tree on top of mud. The roots will go down into one of those blocks and transform it as they go. Kind of similar, once again, to azalea and rooted dirt. That's special. I like that. It's probably not the best way of farming the muddy roots. I think it's probably better to just farm the mud, farm the roots, and then craft them together if you want them in large quantities. But most importantly for me, I think it is consistent with how they are found in the wild, meaning it's going to be nice and easy to make natural-looking mangrove biomes if you want to create an area like that renewably. Because like I said, my nearest mangrove swamp is 5,000 blocks out in the world. I might want to build a custom one a little bit closer to home, even though I probably want to return to that mangrove swamp and do some other fun stuff over there. But I think getting rid of the roots first might actually be a good idea for farming these trees. It makes the whole process a little bit less complicated, although we still have to get up here into the canopy. But I think the last thing I want to do today is break down these mangrove logs into all of their different variants. All of the stuff that we can craft using mangrove logs, let's take a look at all of it in one place so we can really see what we're working with. So like other logs, mangrove can be turned into a version that's got the bark on all 6 sides, the mangrove wood as opposed to the mangrove logs with the end texture exposed. There are stripped variants of both of those, both of which I think look really quite cool. We can do some neat stuff with those, and the planks, while they have that high contrast stripe through the center of them and a lot of highlights to them, also look really neat. I'm very happy with those. The planks, of course, come with slabs and stairs, all of which look much as you'd expect. We also have fences and fence gates, pressure plates, and buttons. And having more pressure plates and buttons in the game can only be a good thing. Naturally, there is a mangrove sign, and there is also a mangrove boat. The Netherwoods didn't have boats because Netherwood is fireproof, and to have a fireproof boat, like, it'd be kind of misleading because people could think you could row it across lava or something. So the Netherwoods did not come with boats. The signs and the boats, I think, both look really quite cool, and I think these are going to look really at home in their native environment of the mangrove swamps. Now, the ones I'm really excited about are, of course, the door and the trapdoor, because the trapdoors have a really unique texture to them, and the doors look fantastic. So let's look at the trapdoor. First of all, a circular aperture in Minecraft. Circles, I'm pretty sure that's illegal, but overall, I think the trapdoors look amazing. I think those are going to be really, really cool. Imagine those as like the portholes on a ship build or something like that. I think those are going to look fabulous in ships. Most importantly, though, I think the door is a real standout, and if we can actually place this properly, I always forget to place it side by side like that, I think these doors are going to look fantastic as like regal entranceways in mansion builds or something like that. You can imagine opening one of these and walking into the billiard room or something like that. I think the doors look absolutely stellar, and this is a door texture I will use a whole lot in fancier, upper-class feeling builds. So overall, Mangrove is really a hit with me. I really like this stuff, and I can't wait to see how we can put it to use elsewhere in our world. I like the trees, and the fact that we can bring the trees elsewhere. Let me do a quick test, actually, because I'm pretty sure these leaves are like a biome-dependent color, like they will look different in other biomes, but I do need to check that really quickly. So let's go somewhere there's a really obvious color transition, like a jungle biome that goes out into a river. That seems like the best place to do this. Already I can tell that's a much more vibrant color than the one I'm holding in my hand, but as we come out into the river biome here, yep, we are definitely see that changing to a pale color. So mangrove leaves are biome dependent. They will change color depending on which biome you're in. I think that's actually a pretty good decision. We got azalea leaves, which are the same color in whatever biome you're in. Now we have mangrove leaves, which are back to the typical Minecraft way of being adaptable to the biomes that you're placing them in. But I think the roots really add a lot to what mangroves bring to the game. We've also got the muddy roots as well, and the mud block palette is going to be super cool. We don't have time really to explore that in this video because I'm too busy getting excited about the mangrove wood themselves, but I think we'll look at mud and packed mud and all of the different stuff we can do with that in a whole separate episode. We also haven't even talked about frogs in those mangrove biomes because we should be finding frogs there and out in swamps now, so I'm excited to explore those, and I'm sure folks are wondering when we're going to the Deep Dark. Well, hopefully we should be able to track down a Deep Dark biome for tomorrow's episode. For now, though, that's where we're going to leave it for this episode of the Minecraft Survival Guide. Thank you folks so much for coming on this journey with me and exploring our first Mangrove Swamp together. Don't forget to leave a like on this video if you enjoyed it, subscribe if you want to see more, and I'll see you folks soon. Take care, and bye for now.